All right, hi everybody. Today I want to walk you through the new Niesen family cabin construction plans for this project we've got up in Boulder Junction, Wisconsin. And this project is a complete teardown and rebuild of the old family cabin that my parents and aunt and uncle bought about 25 years ago. Um, but before we get into all that, I just want to start this slideshow to kind of show you how we've used this space in the past and really kind of what the feel is like up there. So a couple summers ago, a big windstorm came through and actually knocked a bunch of trees down onto the property. And this building was already pretty fragile to begin with. It's just an uninsulated crawl space. The cabin itself was actually two small like fishing cabins that got sort of sandwiched together in just a roof built on top. So after those trees fell, it really was like, do we really try and patch it and limp along, or kind of think about the dream vision here? So my parents decided to do a whole rebuild, and it's funny because actually the summer before we spent quite a bit of time fixing up the siding and repainting everything. But oh well, we aren't wasting the building. We're trying to save all the trim and paneling, the stove, and anything we can incorporate in the new design as well. So that's kind of what you're seeing in a couple of these photos here. But like I mentioned, it's been in the family for 25 years now, and we just have a lot of memories up there. It's a really, really special place to us. We usually do like a big 4th of July gathering and bring extended family and friends and stuff, and yeah, it's just we've really kind of grown into that space. So bringing sort of a second life to this property is going to be really exciting here. One of the other things that's interesting is that the lake we're on, Oswego Lake, is actually a loon sanctuary, so there's no motorboats. It's just mostly like canoes, kayaks, paddleboards, and things like that. So it's relatively like peaceful and quiet, and yeah, we really like the space up there. We get some really beautiful sunsets and stuff too. So this property really is all about the outdoor spaces and kind of feeling at touch with the North Woods. So that's really kind of the vibe we're trying to bring. A little bit of that camping vibe, but having a nice, well-built, cozy home there. So, yeah, keep taking a look at some of these photos, and I will hop back to the plans on page 1. All right, so here we are on page 1, and we worked with this really awesome designer, Cantilever Studios, and Chad Cornett helped us put together this really cool set of plans. So I'll walk you through some of the detail and kind of how we landed on some of this stuff. So here on page 1 you can see this is our lot, and it's pretty narrow, kind of a long skinny lot here, and it intersects our water at like this almost a 45-degree angle, which is sort of interesting. But you can see here's our driveway sort of snaking through. We've got a 2.5 car garage on the side here with a bunkhouse for some extra sleeping and stuff, and then at the end of the driveway is the main house here. We've got 2 setbacks, 15-foot setbacks on each side, and then a 75-foot setback from the lake here. I'll zoom in a little bit. You can see we've got even our fireplace located there. And I'll scroll over to these notes in case you want to read. I won't walk through it all, but at the bottom of this page, we've got some renderings as well. So this isn't really like the final color scheme, but just kind of the shape of the building here with these sort of low slope shed roofs. You can see the big pergola here and the big deck and stuff. All right, let's keep moving on here. On this next page, you can really see the outline of the building, this footprint here, and this dashed line is the old cabin. So traditionally we used to have a path that kind of went along this west side of the building to enter over by this vestibule here, and one of the changes now is that we have this big covered front entrance here at the front of the building. We still have an entrance on this side, but it's really more like a kitchen entrance to this grill area, and then we have another door over here to get out onto this deck. But the big change here is we're going almost twice as wide, and then we're also digging down for a walkout basement. So still kind of that cozy feel. It still feels like it fits the lot, but definitely a lot more usable space in there. And then another thing to note here is that because of this walkout basement, the grade here, the elevation is definitely quite a bit lower than on the sides in the rest of the house here. So we do have these landscaping retaining walls kind of shoring up the soil there for that walkout basement. Another thing to note on this page actually is we've got this big 20-inch oak tree, and we even have notes in the plan to try and limit excavation to help save this oak tree. We had an arborist come up and clear a few trees for the new house, and he also assessed sort of like the risk of the other trees and took down any diseased or rotted trees to try and prevent another windstorm from falling a bunch on the roof. So but talking to him about this oak tree in particular is kind of neat. So this tree was a double trunk tree, and the trunk that's actually closer to the house had been cut down a long time ago. So the existing trunk is for a little bit further away, and it's also leaning away from the building. So we feel like it's relatively safe to keep. And then the arborist is actually going to be there as we excavate to help trim any roots and assess this tree as we go. So worst case scenario, if it's not safe or if something's going on, we can still cut it, but hoping to save it if we can. All right, so this next page here this is our footing plan. So this is kind of the outline of the building. It's not quite a rectangle. We've got this little bump in here, but this is showing our strip footings. And the strip footing part is, like, if you look at this detail here, the strip footing is the bottom rectangle section. So kind of like this section in the plans. And what else is going on here is we've got, on this side here, we've got what's called wing insulation. And the reason for that detail is actually because on this walkout basement side, the footing isn't quite, it's not covered with 4 foot of soil to have that natural frost protection. So we are actually putting this insulation down to help prevent driving frost from getting down to that level of that footing. And then we've also got drain tile kind of circling the perimeter here, and that's what, these little chutes are connecting the drain tile system together, and then we've got a sump pump here to expel any water that gets into that system as well. So taking a look at like the cross section, you can see like in this detail here, you can see that insulation is sloped away from the footing here to help drain any water and really to prevent that frost from driving down. And then what's interesting is we're using this system called ICF for our foundation, and that stands for insulated concrete form. And it's really cool because it's almost like Legos that you can stack on top of your footings. They sort of like click in place, and then you can tie them together with steel ties, set rebar inside, and then you can brace them all from the inside and then pour your concrete. You can see we've got this footing right here is for a load-bearing wall above where that roof pitch changes, and we've got continuous insulation underneath that footing. Under the slab here, we've got 3 inches of insulation as well, and it's really cool. This slab for the basement is actually going to be heated up, so it'll be a hydronic radiant heat slab. So there'll be water tubes running hot water, all throughout this slab to kind of heat it up. Which is a really nice detail. All right, here on this page, you can see a little bit more of the foundation detail. So now this perimeter is showing our ICF blocks, the top elevation of our ICF blocks. And one of the things that's really nice about this plan is our footings and the top elevation of our ICF blocks are all at the same elevation. So there's no step ups or step downs for the footings or anything like that, which really helps reduce sort of the amount of like bucking we have to do to kind of shore up the sides of that. We still have to do it at the window openings and like the door openings, stuff like that. But the other thing is that when you have to kind of step up and step down using ICF is you have to slice one of the blocks to meet up with the other row, because you'll never really have perfect 16-inch different footing elevations. So one of your blocks is going to have to be sliced so that they can still click together perfectly, like Legos essentially. So having everything at the same elevation is a really nice detail, and it's going to help us build this a little bit more in a straightforward way. For this project, it is really mostly me and some friends building a large portion of this project. So like those kind of details thinking about the construction and especially the details in this plan that Chad's put together. He shows everything like, anchor bolting our sill down to, even in this section detail, like you can see we've even got like the rebar chairs, rebar, hydronic tubing, like the drain tile, everything is like really well spec'd out, which is going to help us quite a bit. The other thing in this plan is you can see we've got dimensions for all of our plumbing rough-ins for that basement slab, which again is a really, really helpful detail. Makes things easy and straightforward. I'll zoom in on these concrete notes if you want to take a read real quick. All right, let's keep moving on. Here in this plan, this is the post footing plan. So again, this is our foundation outline. And then all of these over here, these are different footings for posts. And we have two different kinds going on. So we have, these circles are for sonotube footings, or sonotube foundations. And they're basically like a hollow cylinder form that gets put over a footing, and then you add some rebar, some concrete, backfill, and that's essentially how you build these sonotube footings. But these more rectangular ones are called diamond piers. And they're a little bit more like a precast deck block where you put them in place just on grade, and then you drive stakes through to prevent, your frost and uplift and stuff like that. So, kind of mixing the two different post footing styles, just because we do think these diamond piers are going to be a little bit less invasive for tree roots and stuff like that. You don't need to excavate quite so much, and maybe a little bit easier to install for me and my crew up there. So, trying to use those where we can, but sonotubes are a little bit more traditional and a little bit higher capacity where they're really needed. Here, I'll show you what those look like actually. So this is like the sonotube form, like that cylinder that you kind of put down, fill with rebar and concrete, and a little bit more traditional. And then this is really what those diamond piers look like when you have like that precast block and then drive those stakes down. All right, let's keep moving on. All right, and here we have the lower level floor plan. So a lot of detail going on here, but you can see we've got 2 bedrooms in each corner. Each bedroom has a window facing the lake. We've got the big walkout basement door. This is a sliding glass door right out of the lounge here. And you would actually enter this basement here on this side of the stairs and kind of come into the lounge area. We've got 2 bathrooms for each bedroom, and then we've got a washer dryer area and a kitchenette, a little craft table, storage under the closet. And then this area over here is just a mechanical room. And this whole area actually can get kind of walled off with this track wall, which is kind of cool. And you can see a little bit more of, those post footings for our deck and stuff over there too. This wall here is that load-bearing wall for where that roof pitch changes above. So there'll be big headers, here, big header over the washer dryer and stuff as well. And then I think this is actually the biggest header in our building here, is the one that goes over that walkout basement door here. Let's keep going on. And then this is the main level floor plan. So a lot of stuff going on here, but we'll walk you through it. So let's start over here by the covered entry area. So this entry has steps on this side and this side, and that's kind of the angle that you would sort of approach this, I think, from the driveway. It's coming up over to this direction. And part of this entry is we've got, a big bench seat here as well, which is really cool. And that, one of the cool things is that the decks are connected by this little bench seat as well. So this sort of top step continues all the way over and connects to the other deck as well, which I'll show you in some more detail later. But coming into the building here, we have this little entry kind of mudroom area, and it's just we've got some bench seats, some places to store coats, and then this little half bath. So the idea here is this is sort of to replace. We had an outhouse. Well, it's still there as of the time of this video, but it won't be once we start building. But anyways, this area is really to kind of replace that outhouse. We call it the moho, the modern outhouse. But anyways, the idea is like this space really is about being outside and being sort of like connected in the North Woods. So having this like easily accessible without having to go way far into the building and stuff is really important. So you can kind of come in, charge your phones, grab your coats, whatever, do your business, and hop on back outside. Well, I've got Nora over here with me. So over here, we've got the kitchen. And it's the same corner of the building as before. So kind of keeping that similar flow and that similar feel. We've got the sink over here looking out these windows towards like that driveway area. Got a big island over here, refrigerator, cooktop. And this is the really cool thing that I think is going to be so nice to have is we've got this door right out to the covered grill area. And then kind of flowing through here, we've got the big dining room with these big windows here looking out to the lake and a door to get out to this deck over here as well. And then over here, we've got this hearth room. And I think the idea is to have sort of like a sectional couch on these two walls. And then another big window here. And this is that same stove that we have in the old cabin. So we've got this hearth here, that wood stove, and then it's kind of tucked in the corner of the stair opening, which it looks, maybe it looks a little bit busy in the plans here, but the guardrail here is just cabling, so you can see through it and stuff. It shouldn't obstruct too much of the view. There will be a little bit of busyness with like the handrail and stuff, but I think it'll come together really nicely. And then entering into the master bedroom over here. So coming through this custom pivot door into the master bedroom, we've got a big closet here. One of the things you'll note is there's actually this arrow that says up. And the way the roof slopes, there's actually a lot of room up there. So above this closet and above this walk-in shower here is like a storage loft. And there's a little bit more detail at the bottom of this page I'll show you. But then coming into the master bathroom over here, we've got this walk-in shower, our vanity, tub, a toilet. And the ceiling here again is pretty high. So we've got these decorative beams kind of over the tub area too, which is pretty cool. And then, and this detail down in the corner is a little bit more of like that loft above the walk-in closet. All right, let's keep going on here. All right, this next page here is really kind of like the bird's eye view. So these two big sections are a low slope metal roof. This flat roof section is just kind of like a rubber roof, EPDM. And then this is cool. We've got a translucent glass roof over that grill nook area, kind of just attached to that pergola structure. And this is that pergola that's on the deck walkway. This is that chimney vent coming through the roof, and then these are plumbing vents. All right, keep moving on. All right, here we go. All right, now we've got some of the elevation drawings, and this first one is sort of like what you would see from the driveway side. So like the kitchen is over in this corner with the sink kind of looking out these windows. This is that covered entry with that bench seat right in here. And then over on this side is where that master bathroom is. You can see kind of that pergola structure a little bit, that grill nook area. And yeah, I'll zoom in a little bit, but we've got this big custom gutter here with a rain chain, which is kind of a cool detail as well. And then this is that bench seat that continues, that continuous step. You can even see some of our basement details here. So like this would be that ICF block foundation, the basement slab, and then like this is, for example, one of those sonotubes. And I'll talk about it a little bit more later, but this is a big 14-inch wide fascia made out of LP wood grain panel, which is really cool. It's the full thickness of our roof rafter system, our TGI joist system. All right, and then this other elevation here, this north elevation, is like from the lake side of the building. So you can see this is our walkout basement door, sliding glass door. Then we've got lots of big windows here. So this is that dining room corner. This is the window in that hearth room. This is the window in that master bedroom. And then these windows are the egress windows for the basement bedrooms. And in this plan, yeah, you can really see kind of that cable guardrail system here too. So one of the really cool things about that is it doesn't really obstruct your views too much, so you can see through it. Get some really nice views as well. And we've got the stairs kind of heading down, continuing that path down to the lake. And then here you can really see, these are those diamond piers where you can really see those stakes driving into the soil there as well. And this is kind of what, these are like those landscape Gabion baskets. Let me show you a photo of that. So these help us kind of shore up the soil and do kind of the step ups and step downs for the grading, because again, this is much lower elevation than like what the grade would be on the sides and stuff. So yeah, these are kind of what those Gabion baskets look like. So it's really cool, but the plan for us is to fill kind of the bottom and the backside with debris from the old cabin, because we're going to have some some leftover like concrete block and stuff, and so we can fill the bottom and the backside with that stuff, and then fill the top and the front with more decorative like native stone and stuff. All right, let's keep moving on here. Yeah, and this is the elevation where you can really see like how bold that big 14-inch fascia looks. It's really cool detail. I really like it. And then, so this elevation, the west elevation, is like the dining room kitchen side. So we've got this door leaning out to that grill nook, and you can see this is that big pergola structure with that glass roof above that grill area as well. Yeah, and just as something to mix it up too, the siding throughout here is T111 style wood siding, which is a really cool. I think that'll feel really, really nice and feel like it fits up north. But we have a couple small sections that are actually metal siding, and we'll just use the same metal that we use for the roofing. But it's like this little section above the roof. We've got this section, the stairs covered with metal siding. This section by the covered entry. And then you can see again, like these are those sonotubes and these are those diamond piers with stakes. Yeah, let's keep moving on. And then this is that west elevation, or I'm sorry, this is the east elevation down here. Kind of like if you're looking from like Jim's property, if you're familiar with the property up there. But this is like the master bathroom and master bedroom side, basically. And then we have that little bump out, if you remember the shape of the foundation, where we're bringing in our utilities. And one of the really cool details that our architects thought through is like even just connecting our Z-flashing with the top of the windows and getting that layout correct. So, it lands on top of a big panel. The windows are at the same elevation, and we can just flash, continuous horizontal line there. Some of those construction details a lot of people maybe don't think through, but if you can think through it from the beginning, it really helps the process. So really appreciate that. Chad really did an awesome job with the detail here. And then this is that cable guardrail system. You can see the steps going down to the lake, and this is kind of what I guess from this view the landscaping will look like as it heads down. Roughly, just showing grade and stuff. That rain chain for the gutter over here. All right, and this is our window schedule. So we're using a fiberglass series of windows, the Marvin Essential line, and yeah, we're really excited. There's a lot of really cool casement and operating windows. There's a couple of really big banks of windows that we'll have to multi together before we put them in. So they're going to be way too big for us to just manhandle. So we're going to need a lift or a winch to get them up in place, which should be really interesting, but it'll be a fun day for sure. All right, and these next 3 pages, I believe, are all from that from this east elevation. So as if you're looking at the property from Jim's place, but these are sort of section drawings to show the internal components and some of those details. So I'll try not to get too involved with it, but I'll walk you through some of the stuff that I think is really cool. Yeah, so we'll start up here with our TJI roof system. So these rafters are a TJI 230 series at a 212 slope, so a pretty low slope roof, and the ceiling actually follows that slope. So we want to get insulation in this cavity, but we don't want to. But we also want ventilation up there. So what we're gonna do is we're actually doing a bib system of insulation, which is called a blown-in blanket system, and essentially we staple like a cardboard material to the bottom of this top cord. So these TGI joists are made with like a top cord and a bottom cord. So if we staple like a material to the bottom of the top cord, we can get insulation up tight to that barrier while still maintaining some airflow within that top cord cavity space. And you can see how that's spec'd. We've got airflow kind of continuing down here. Let me zoom in a little bit. And even where we have blocking, we cut V's in there to continue that airflow. It's a really cool detail. And our walls will also be that bib system. So let me show you a photo of what that bibs insulation looks like. Yeah, so essentially this is like the blanket that they'll staple on the bottom of those joists, and then they will you basically blow in cellulose until it reaches a certain density for your insulation rating. We've got a beam up here to hold the structure where that roof pitch changes with some hangers spec'd out, which is really nice. Our floor system here is a web truss system, so we can hopefully get some mechanicals chasing through there. You can see some ducts that are drawn in there. We'll have spray foam for our box sills where they sit on the foundation to get that nice and airtight. This is that continuous bench seat here. You can see that detail a little bit. And like this detail here is what's called a tension tie to really hold our deck tight to that building. Again, here you can see our ICF foundation wall, and you can see some really good detail here for our basement slab too. So 3 inches of insulation on top, our continuous footing with insulation underneath. We've got these chairs holding up rebar, and these tubes are actually the hydronic heat tubes running through that slab. This is that load-bearing wall coming down to that footing to support this big structure up above. And yeah, a lot of good stuff going on. But let's keep moving on. Yeah, so similar section drawing, we've got the stair opening here, so you can see this intermediate landing and kind of where that pitch changes, or not pitch, I'm sorry, just the angle of where the stairs run changes a little bit. And we've got the really nice guardrail system here that you can see through for the most part. And yeah, some more details about some various headers. Yeah, that wing insulation detail again, some of our ICF. A little bit more detail for that bench seat. Yeah, this is that bench seat detail as well. Some more detail for header. And yeah, I just love that everything's drawn really, like even just rafter ties for holding our ceiling system down. Let's keep going on here. So yeah, another section drawing. You can see a little bit more detail for sort of the bench seats in that entry area. You can see kind of what that covered entryway looks like with, we've got a diamond pier here. Again, trying to be, minimally invasive on this side to help with that oak tree over there too. Yeah, that tension tie holding that deck on. Yeah, and up here you can see we've got this game cabinet at the top of this stair landing, which is kind of cool. So if you're, doing whatever, you can always, come down to here to grab something, or up to here. Just a nice little detail. This is kind of what that chimney is going to look like. And then here we've got like a recessed niche for a TV to be stored in there. So, it's definitely not the focal point of that hearth room, but you could pull it out and watch like a game or whatever if you want to up there. Yeah, a lot of really good details down here. There's that tension tie. Here's kind of how you'd anchor a sill into that diamond pier. This is a connection for our I-beam. We do have a steel I-beam supporting this covered deck area over here. Alright, and another section drawing here. So, yeah, this is a little bit more for like that master bathroom, master closet. This is that half bath actually. So if you remember, like this area of the building is further back than this area because of that sort of bump in, but we can get all the detail here in this section drawing. So yeah, this is that tiled walk-in shower, and these are kind of those stairs up to that loft above. Yeah, and this is that really cool custom pivot door. So we're gonna make that out of just salvage material like paneling and trim and stuff from the old cabin. And then we've got this transom glass above, which will be really cool. And then another little detail here is to get a little bit more room in that master bedroom, we are cantilevering the floor trusses a little bit over the foundation. So we didn't want to overcomplicate the foundation. We wanted to just keep a simple shape. So rather than changing the footprint of the foundation, we're just cantilevering these joists over. So there's some good detail for how to insulate that too. Yeah, even more detail there. And then this detail over on the other side is actually to show really how to waterproof and flash this detail, this area over here, where kind of this shed roof overhangs the low slope area. Definitely want to make sure that's well built and flashed correctly. Zoom out a little. And then, yep, this detail shows a little bit about kind of that pergola structure and that grill nook area. So it is interesting how that grill nook is cantilevered over quite a bit. So there's some details on how to do that. Some sister joists here with blocking. Really detailed, really good ledger attachment here for the building with through bolts. And same with up here, we've got a really detailed, really good ledger attachment for what's going to be supporting this pergola structure, and some 2x3s here, which actually span sort of the pergola rafters to hold that glass roof for the grill area. And you can see here kind of like, this is also some detail for how the shape of that metal roof above, sort of the corrugation. Alright, let's keep going on. And then this next page here is another cross section. So I just really like that, Chad called out some of these details. So like even this dashed line here is where the other roof kind of intersects, the roof that would be behind this section. So he just called out this detail to make sure we insulate this wall, I think, because below this other roof is going to be interior to the building, but above it is an exterior wall, so we want to make sure we definitely insulate that and get things good to go. Yeah, you can see a little bit more detail about, like, this is that bathroom, linen closet, vanity. This is that lower level bathroom and that lower level bedroom. The cantilevered truss system there. Then over here we've got, this is a big header detail right over that walkout basement sliding door. Again, we've got that sloped insulation for frost protection, our drain tile system tying together. I think this is the biggest header we have. I believe it's a 3-ply, like 9 1/4 inch LVL. And yeah, I think you can see that. Yeah, so this is our floor framing plan, and it's that same header right here. And still on this page here, I'll zoom in a little bit, but this is kind of what that master bathroom will look like. That tile shower, that storage loft, vanity, window, really nice mirror here, and then obviously our toilet and the tub here as well. Then we've got those decorative beams that kind of span the room as well. On this next page, this is, like I said, the floor framing plan. So we've got our stair opening in the floor. We've got, some headers spec'd out, and then these are those tension ties holding the deck tight to the building that you can see there as well. And then on this page, we even have some detail for how to build, like, the framing for this hearth here, which is really cool. Yeah, and then this last page here is our deck framing plan. So, yeah, like kind of a continuous deck for a lot of this, with that bench seat connecting the two sides, front entry deck over here, and then sort of the long walkway deck under that pergola structure, and then the big sort of like dining room deck over here. And this little area is for the stairs that go down both sides, and the grill nook. And I believe these are 19.2 on center rather than 16 on center. And just because we're planning on using like real 2x deck boards instead of like 5/4 boards. And honestly, I think we're just leaning towards the cedar tone pressure treat stuff that you can get from Menards. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of like the Trex deck and some of the composites and stuff. It feels a little bit like plasticky to me. And I just think the actual wood is a little bit more of that Northwoods feel. So really kind of like that detail, and it will age a little bit. Here, let me pull up that stuff for you. So yeah, this is like that cedar tone pressure treat stuff, and it will age a little bit. It'll weather out, but we'll get decades and decades of use out of this stuff. So I think we're good with it. And a little bit more detail for our diamond piers and that bench seat at the front covered porch and stuff. But yeah, if you guys want me to follow up with any other details, or if there's any questions you have, feel free to leave a comment or reach out to me. Yeah, thanks for watching. Hopefully I'll start a series here once we get going with construction.